There was never a dull moment on the set of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, like the time that Phoebe Waller-Bridge dressed up like Harrison Ford to scare him. And do you know what better than a slap in the belly with a wet fish means? Phoebe learned the hard way. This is everything that went on behind the scenes in the newest Indiana Jones movie. If this is the last time you'll see him wearing Indy's fedora, then Harrison's going all out. He did many of his own stunts for the movie, even though he was bordering 80 at the time.
I'm having more fun than I really should, so don't tell anybody.
Like when he rode horseback through Glasgow, Scotland, serving as the set for New York City. Harrison had a bit of trouble getting off the horse afterwards, but when anyone tried to help him, he said, quote, "Leave me alone. I'm an old man getting off a horse, and I want it to look like that."
But it's also really impressive that you were actually still the person doing all that crazy stuff.
But the stunt that Harrison struggled the most with? Simply throwing a punch at Mads Mikkelsen's character. Harrison actually injured his shoulder doing this, delaying production by a month.
It's gonna hurt, but he's gonna do it anyway.
Luckily, he still had some time for some much-needed fun. There was a lot of joking around on this set, and according to Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she and Harrison were the worst for it. At one point, Phoebe even tried to scare Harrison by putting on a mask of his face that had been made for his stunt double and hiding in his trailer. She said that it actually worked. Quote, even though that actually is only represented by him blinking 3 times and saying, "Get the hell out of my trailer." Harrison returned the favor 20 minutes later by sneaking up on Phoebe wearing a mask of her face. He even went so far as to tie his shirt into a bow to match her outfit, which sounds better than a slap in the belly with a wet fish. Have you figured out what that means yet? It means things could be worse, and it's a phrase Harrison Ford is fond of saying, which caused Phoebe a bit of confusion on set. According to Harrison, she asked him what it meant when they were, quote, sitting on a set that happened to have a lot of wet fish. And so he said he had the chance to, quote, show her what a slap in the belly with a wet fish is like. Luckily, Harrison was too much of a gentleman to make her go through it, and considering she doesn't have the stunt training he does, that was probably for the best. Harrison's bare torso served as the testing board. Phoebe said, "I got the biggest fish I could find and dragged it over." At that point, according to Harrison, quote, "She whacked the stuffing out of me." But it was all okay. He apparently loved it. And if you love our channel just as much, we'd recommend taking this time to subscribe. What do you think Phoebe struggled with most on set? Easily the stunts.
I think the physical side of this film was really surprising and exciting.
You may, in a way, be able to feel what Phoebe's saying when she describes herself as a lanky, gangly kind of awkward physical person. When she'd heard that she'd gotten the role in Indiana Jones, Phoebe immediately began doing a lot of training for her big stunt debut. But when she told the director what she was doing, James Mangold said, quote, "I think it would be funnier if you don't." He told her it was important that they were messy. And Phoebe said, quote, "It was fun to mess things up like the characters do." Still, even though it didn't have to be quite as slick as Harrison Ford taking the Indiana Jones costume home, Phoebe still needed to do the stunts well. And she was both surprised and excited by how physical the role was. You may be having a hard time saying goodbye to Indiana Jones, but Harrison Ford is taking it even harder.
If I occasionally feel emotional, I'm not embarrassed by it.
He's been so moved by the amount of support these films have had and felt like he was coming home by putting back on that fedora. He felt like he knew the character so well.
Preparation was not really necessary.
It makes us wonder if Antonio Banderas feels the same about Puss in Boots. But did you know that Harrison may even be taking the fedora home with him?
Well, you can't know, because you have no idea what I do in my house.
It sounds like he and Callista Flockhart, his wife of 13 years, have been getting up to some fun with the costume.
If I dress up in Indiana Jones clothes and do certain things with my wife, that's not really anything to do with you.
But let's try to keep it kid-friendly here. It's the little things that get us by. Phoebe got along with pretty much everyone on set, although she'd been nervous to meet big stars like Harrison and Mads. She said, quote, "Within 15 seconds, it just felt like we were a gang." One of her favorite memories from set comes to us from Antonio Banderas.
Well, Antonio Banderas would do the Puss in Boots impression whenever you asked him.
Harrison didn't see what the big deal was.
Didn't help me much.
Really helped.
But Phoebe definitely appreciated the laugh. Still, Harrison agreed that he'd never seen actors quite so giving as they were on this movie, and apparently it was Phoebe in particular that he had to thank for being very present and emotionally involved in the scene.
It's a pure joy. We had a lot of that in this movie.
But if Phoebe was present, then Harrison was definitely going back to the past with this role. You never saw anything like this in the original movies. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny shows us flashbacks to Indy as a young man, which was accomplished using AI-assisted visual effects technology that actually pulled Indiana Jones' expressions from the Lucasfilm library in order to superimpose them over Harrison's face in editing. Harrison explained, quote, "It's my mouth and present-day eyes, but they put it on my face from 40 years ago," something which he said was absolutely amazing. When Phoebe saw Harrison performing these flashback scenes, she thought that he did it with the same amount of youthful energy that he had the first time around.
I don't really know why they had to change your face in the movie.
Can you imagine if they had decided to go that route? But Indy's face isn't the only thing from the original movies that's back this time. Do you remember that good old-fashioned John Williams score? Well, he's back for this movie, and this time he's bringing a whole new score.
I didn't know if John would do the whole movie. I only prayed.
James Mangold got pretty lucky with him.
At first he said, I'll write some themes. And then he just couldn't stop writing all the music to the movie.
But then again, maybe his involvement isn't that surprising, considering how much John loves the franchise.
I have been fortunate enough to be associated with the films over quite a long period of time.
Even though John had originally said that The Dial of Destiny would feature his final film score, he later went back on that statement when he said, quote, "If they do an Indiana Jones 6, I'm on board." It seems he loves these movies just as much as we're loving the costumes. Don't you just love the period look in these costumes? Shawnette Renee Wilson even got to collaborate with the movie's costume department when it came to her look, which she said was inspired by the, quote, 1960s blaxploitation era. Shawnette's mood board had been plastered with pictures of Pam Grier, Foxy Brown, and Cleopatra Jones, stating that she wanted to pay, quote, beautiful homage to all of that. It took the longest amount of time for the crew to perfect her fro, which apparently had started out pretty small. But over time, her do just kept growing and growing, until Shawnette just said, if we're gonna make a statement, just, go big or go home, and that's what we did. We wonder if it was a bit of advice she got from Phoebe at the time. Shawnette and Phoebe got to be great friends on set. Shawnette said, quote, "I think we really connected going on lovely trips in Edinburgh together, before going on to call the pair of them Glasgow gals till we die." Phoebe was even nice enough to read a pilot Shawnette had written and give her a few tips. Shawnette said that Phoebe was very complimentary and just went through a bit of her process. But she also suggested that Shawnette should, quote, write what scares you. Shawnette agreed, going on to say, because that's what the real craft is, taking something personal and fictionalizing it and making it something that's relatable to everyone. We're glad to hear that Phoebe was able to give something to Shawnette that she'll be able to take into the future. And who knows, maybe we'll be seeing that pilot make its way to our screens someday. As much as the cast definitely worked hard on this movie, it's nice for us to see that they still played hard too. Between practical jokes and gangs on set, which of these behind-the-scenes details surprised you the most? And what are your thoughts on the newest Indiana Jones movie? Make sure to let us know down in the comments section.